Welcome to Unleashing Happiness. I am your host, Cecilia Hendricks, and today we're going to talk about how to improve the ways that you're talking about yourself and learning how to show up more for yourself so that you can have confidence in the things that you're doing and really appreciate the person that you are. Happy Wednesday, and thank you for joining me. I am Cecilia Hendricks, and I am really excited today because we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is actually speaking to yourself kindly and learning how to give yourself some self-forgiveness, start talking to yourself a little bit nicer, and just starting to shift those thoughts maybe that you're having that are not as kind to yourself as you would like to be or as you think you should be. A thought that is repeated ends up becoming a belief. And so when you are continuously visiting a thought or a way that you're speaking to yourself that is not aligned to the life that you want to lead, it's not aligned to the person that you want to be, eventually that kind of starts to settle in and you start to believe that about yourself. And so it's important that the things that you're telling yourself and the way that you're talking to yourself and the way that you're showing up for yourself are aligned with the type of life that you want to lead, the type of person that you want to be, in this desired outcome or wish fulfilled that you have in mind. So we're going to have a couple steps to this. The first is going to be looking at the way that you're talking to yourself and becoming more aware of it. You can really only change something once you're actually aware that you're doing it, because then you can kind of catch yourself a little bit more in the moment and start to shift those behaviors and those habits and routines that you're maintaining. And I'm not necessarily talking about robotic affirmation, so I'll get into that a little bit later. The next part is starting to build trust in yourself. The key here is that if you say you're going to do something and you tell yourself you're going to do it, that you're actually going to follow through with it. And we're going to use the habit routine, like the habit loop, in order to set up those routines for you to show up for yourself and to make a plan of what that's going to look like and how you're going to do that and the different ways that you're going to continue to get better each day. I'll have some activities for you as well to say like, hey, here's some things that you can do during your morning, during your day, and during your evening to start to really focus on this and to start to kind of shift the way that you're talking to yourself and about yourself. So if you either want to grab a journal so that you can jot some of this stuff down, or make sure to take note that you need to come back to this, especially if you're driving. But if you would also like, on my YouTube channel, I have launched a masterclass series. So far, there's 3 out for the first chapter, and it comes with a workbook if you would like to sign up for it, but you definitely don't have to. So I will leave a link to the playlist to those masterclasses down below in the show notes. If that's something that you're interested in, you can go ahead and listen. Like I said, there's a workbook if you want to sign up for it. That link is, I'll put down below as well. But otherwise, you can really just use your own journal and listen along. But there's 3 episodes so far. There is a lot more content coming that I'm working on. So the next step will be coming out probably within this next week. And it's absolutely free content. So the workbook is free, the videos are free. And so I just really wanted to put that content out to make sure that anybody who wants to make changes to their life, but really needs kind of more of a direction, transformational type process to follow, would be able to do so. And that's what those master classes in the workbook is all about. So if you want to bop on over there and check that out, I would absolutely love it. If you have comments or suggestions on other topics you would like me to talk about, I would always love to hear from you. My email is unleashinghappiness@ceciliahendricks.com. Or if you're on YouTube, you can definitely just leave a note in the comments and I will grab that. So as we jump in today, the first thing that I would like to ask of you is that you spend today really paying attention to the way that you talk to yourself. So I want you to just pay attention. You don't have to be upset. You don't have to try to change it. You don't have to get frustrated, but just start to become aware of the thoughts that you're having, especially when they're around yourself. Whether you are thinking that you're not good at something or that you are remarkable at something, whether you're thinking that you don't look nice in your clothing or you really love the way that you feel in your clothing. But I want you to start paying attention to those conversations that you have. I can share that personally, I was really surprised when I first started doing this process of just paying attention to see the things that I was saying I was not good at. So there was stuff at work that I would make either jokes at myself or speak internally that I was just not good at something. And I'm sure that if I wanted to trace it back, I could probably find those conversations coming from someone in my childhood or some sort of event that happened in my childhood that I could mark to say, okay, this is when I decided I wasn't good at this. And I've used the example of like the budget. So I work on the budget at my job, and it is not something that I would have ever said that I was very good at. And I still catch myself now making kind of jokes at myself about not being good at it when I actually am. Like I do really well at it. I'm able to follow along what's happening, and it's not something that I've done overall, and it's a relatively large budget. So, and then I've also found in my own business that I'm able to balance kind of the money and deal with the budget and the finances. So it's not something that I need to tell myself that I'm not good at. But for some reason, for a very long time, I would. And so I started to shift those conversations, and I started to pay attention to these small wins that show this is something I'm good at. And truly, if I'm not technically good at something when I start, that's okay too. The more that I go back to it, the more that I practice it both mentally and physically, the better that I get at it. And I can really learn just about anything. And so I'm very open to that now as well. And so that's part of this shift, is becoming aware of the things you're saying about yourself. Do you view yourself as creative? Do you view yourself as smart? Do you view yourself as funny? Do you view yourself as magnetic and open and people want to be around you and loved and desired? Do you view yourself as very smart and studious and thoughtful? But what are those things, right? Like, how do you actually view yourself? And how do you want to view yourself, I guess, is the most important question. Do you want to be viewed as those ways? Do you want to see yourself as those things? Once you know how you actually want to be viewed, then take a look at the way you're talking to yourself. So if you say, okay, yes, I want to be viewed as magnetic and loved and really energetic and open and funny and smart and creative, but then you notice that the way you talk about yourself is in complete opposition of that, and you're telling yourself constantly like, well, I can't do that because I'm not very smart, or I can't keep up in this conversation because I'm not as creative as these people, or nobody really wants to hang out with me, or I don't get calls from my friends, then start paying attention to those today. Because remember, the more aware you are of something, the more you are able to change it. We're going to put it into the habit loop to be able to change it. So you're having some sort of trigger to even go into these thoughts. So you have a cue that leads to the routine, and the routine is having these thoughts and these ways that you're talking about yourself. And so I want you to start paying attention first to the ways that you're doing it. Like, how are you actually talking about yourself? What type of inner conversations are you having? But mostly around you. We're not going to really worry about other people right now. We're going to focus on only you. How are you talking to yourself? How are you viewing yourself? And I want you to consider too the labels that you're giving yourself. So if you say, I'm an anxious person, I am high strung, I just want you to start paying attention to those and the labels that you're giving yourself. And then from there, start to kind of shift the words a little bit. So instead of saying, I am an anxious person, you can even say something as, I feel anxiety. I get anxious in certain situations. But instead of labeling yourself as an anxious person, you're giving the anxiety to an event. Like, in this situation, I feel high anxiety. If I need to go out around a lot of people, I feel anxiety. Not, I'm an anxious person, because there's probably areas in life, I would hope, that you don't feel as anxious. And that as you start to shift your identity away from being an anxious person to just someone who gets anxiety in certain situations, then you're able to feel calm in some other areas. And I struggled with this because I used to always say I was overwhelmed. Like, I'm an overwhelmed person. I'm always overwhelmed. And I was holding this as part of my identity. And I realized that what I was doing is that I was holding it as part of my identity to show that I was doing stuff. Like, to me, being overwhelmed was actually saying that I'm getting stuff done, that I'm a mom and I've got a job and I take care of this and I do that. And so being overwhelmed was almost this like weird badge of honor that I was holding. And I'm definitely not saying that others are holding it as a badge of honor. I'm just sharing my own personal experience and what I found for me. And I didn't recognize that at first, but I realized that the more that I said, that I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, that it was like showing that I was so busy and I had so much stuff going on. And there was just this weird kind of like hustle culture around that of like, you need to be tired, you need to be exhausted, you need to be overwhelmed to show that you're doing something and that you're keeping up and that you're being productive like any woman should. And I noticed these same conversations in female, especially mother circles that I would be in, that everybody wanted to talk about how exhausted they were. And it was almost like a weird kind of way to fit in. Like, well, I'm so exhausted. I have so much going on. I always feel tired. I always feel this. I'm always this. And it was like, wait a minute, but I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to project that. I do want to sit for an hour and read a book. And I think that's fantastic and extremely productive because then I'm focusing on myself and I'm doing things to take care of me and my soul and my mind. And so I really started to shift those behaviors. But it started with shifting the way I was talking about myself. I didn't want to continue to identify with somebody who was overwhelmed and tired and exhausted. I wanted to identify with somebody who was getting things done for them and felt really good and loved themselves and loved the life that they were leading. And what was amazing is that during these times of saying how overwhelmed I was and how tired I was, I enjoyed my life. Like I've always really enjoyed being a mom. That's something that I truly believe I was born to fulfill. But my wanting to talk about being overwhelmed and tired and really focusing on feeling that way was affecting the way that I was feeling as a person. And it was affecting the way that I was able to show up to those that are around me, including my family and my kids. And that's why this is one of my favorite topics, because I actually think that the more that you talk about yourself differently, you embody a new identity, the better that you'll feel. And the better that you'll feel, the more output you're able to give. And it doesn't feel tiring and it doesn't feel exhausting. And you're able to release some of the anxiety because then it's not actually part of you. It's just part of an event and it comes and it goes. While your feelings are definitely truth, they're part of your perception, you don't have to own them so close to your own identity. So this is an activity from Sean Webb's book, Mind Hacking Happiness. I believe it's in volume 1. But so if you look at yourself as like this ball that's in the center of you, and that's your me, right? And you've got this circle and that's me. And everything that's close to that makes up your identity. So your values and things that are important to you would be really close. And there's rings around it. And the further the rings get, the less important it is to you, but it's still within your awareness. But that's really what makes up your identity, is this me map of what's really close to you and what's further out. And usually the things that trigger you, you can find really close to the center me. So the further something gets away, the less kind of importance it has, but it's still there, right? So like your political affiliation may be on an outside ring, but it's still important to you because you care, or it could be really, really close and it's very triggering to you if somebody threatens it. The best part about this me map is that you can change where stuff is. You can start to make a decision about your own identity and the way that you're going to talk about yourself. And the more that you change that, the more that your behaviors change. Because when you identify as a specific kind of person, your behaviors are going to fall in line with that person. If you see yourself as a successful business owner, you're going to have certain habits and routines and things that you do, behaviors that you maintain, that are aligned with being that type of person. The same if you identify yourself as someone who is lazy, your behaviors are going to be aligned with somebody who is lazy. And something to notice about all of these labels is that they're subjective. Me feeling anxiety could be completely different from Jane Doe next to me feeling anxiety. Me feeling like a successful business owner could look completely different to Joe Bob over here feeling like a successful business owner. And even laziness, it's all going to be up to your perception. One person's laziness may be another one's totally productive day. And that's why we're always looking at our own perceptions, because it's not about what other people think, it's about what you think. And it's about the way that you feel and the way that you're spending your days and how you're focused and just overall your kind of mental well-being and your physical well-being and the way that you're treating yourself. So, after you start to pay attention to kind of the ways that you're talking about yourself, if you identify some things that you want to change, like let's say that you are continuously telling yourself that you're not very creative, but you would like to actually lean into your own personal creativity, then I want you to start thinking of a plan of how you can start to pay attention to your own creativity. What are things that you can incorporate into your day that encourage creativity? We're going to go back to our habit loops and setting up a habit loop. So I want you to look at the ways that you're spending your morning, the ways that you're spending your day, and the ways that you're spending your evening. And there is an evening activity that I'll talk about here in just 1 minute. But to start, I want you to say, okay, I want to lean into my own personal creativity. What are some ways that I can encourage creativity within my day and I can start to pay attention to it? And there's lots of different ways. You can either do like a coloring book, you can write a poem, you can start reading more. There's things that you can do to start encouraging your own creativity and kind of building that muscle up that allows you to pay attention to you being creative. And it can be as simple as adding a daily joy that you're going to sit outside and pay attention to the different colors that you can pull out of the sunrise. I'm just trying to give like a bunch of different examples so that you can look at your own day. And if you don't want to add an actual activity, that's totally fine too. You can start to encourage yourself to mention the ways and pay attention to the ways that you're being creative. So let's say that while you're at work, you come up with a pretty cool idea that's like a really neat solution to a problem. I want you to start paying attention and saying, oh my gosh, that was a really creative thought process that I had here, and I came up with a great solution. And start to pay attention to those moments, because there's moments of your day that you're definitely being maybe more creative than you're giving yourself credit for. And then let's say that you also cook a meal and you like put the meal together in different flavor profiles, and you say, wow, that was really creative of me. I was able to put this meal together in different creative profiles. That's actually showing my creativity in ways that I hadn't considered before. And so again, this is really just us becoming aware. So now you have two options. You can either add stuff to your day to encourage your own creativity, and I'm just using creativity as an example. So you can say, I want to be more creative. I want to pay attention to it. So I'm going to start actually going and taking a painting class once a week. Like, I want to encourage my own creativity. And or you can just start paying attention to the ways that you're already creative. So you can start to pay attention to these small wins and really call them out throughout the day. And be vocal with yourself. Like, wow, this actually was something that was amazing. And you can do this with anything that you want to do. So if you want to see more love in your life, then you can do things to encourage self-love for yourself. How can you start to show up for yourself more? How can you keep your promises to yourself? And then start to pay attention to the ways that others treat you. Like, did someone give you a compliment on your shirt? There's some love that's coming into your life. Did someone hold the door open for you? There's some love coming into your life. So hopefully that's making sense of the ways that you can add this into your day. And I really encourage both. If I'm looking to add creativity to my life, I like to do things that I feel like I'm being creative and I'm kind of building that muscle. And then always pay attention to the small wins. What are things that are already happening that say creativity in my life? What are things that I'm already doing that are encouraging the creativity? Even like down to my outfit, the way I do my makeup, all of it really leads up to saying, oh, wait a minute, I actually am a creative person and I am doing these things. And the more that you pay attention to them, the more aware you'll become of more of them. And I know a big area of life that a lot of people want to encourage for themselves is also within love and having love in their life. And if you regularly listen to any content that I put out, I definitely encourage self-care, self-love, taking care of yourself and showing up for yourself. And the best way to encourage love in your own life is to give it to yourself first and to really pay attention to those things that you're doing for you in the ways that love is showing up that you just may not be paying attention to. Because remember, our brains are always taking in so much information. There's so much going on around us at any given time that we're going to learn, our brains learn how to focus on what matters to us. And so the way that you encourage that focus is by what you pay attention to and the ways that you believe, and the thoughts that you continue to dwell in and entertain. And so the more that you go back to those, the more that your brain's looking for confirmation bias that that's what you should be doing. And so that's the cycle that ends up happening for you. So the more that you broaden your awareness and start to take in more of your perception, the more that you're able to see it. And the more that you're able to see it, the better you'll feel. The better you feel, the more you're able to see it. So it's really a beautiful cycle. And one of the most important things that you can do then is start to show up for yourself. When you tell yourself you're going to do something, following through with it is one of the greatest ways to build confidence. It's one of the best things that you can actually do for yourself. And I really struggled with this. I often was telling myself that I was going to do something and then not following through. And the more that I didn't follow through, the less trust I had in myself. And the less trust I had in myself, the easier it was to just be like, yeah, I'm going to do that and then do nothing about it. And I'm talking about things even like trying to build my own habits, like washing my face every night, making my bed, making sure that I hit my to-do list. It was very easy for me to just not get that stuff done and not think about it as that big of a deal because I was so used to not showing up for myself and not following through on the things I said I was going to do just to myself. I was much more likely to do it if I told somebody else, and that was an issue. I didn't want to hold myself more accountable to people external to me than I held myself to myself. So when I started paying attention to the habit loops and the ways that I was behaving and the things that I was doing, I realized that that was a habit. Not showing up for myself, not continuing with the things I said I was going to do, not completing my goals was really just a habit loop that I had fallen into. So in order to change that, I went back to all of the things that I had read in the books. The Power of Habit, Atomic Habits, and Tiny Habits are all three really fantastic ones. I'm right in the middle of Tiny Habits now. But so what those all talk about is making sure that you are focusing on small, sustainable change. And that's why I talk a lot here about getting 1% better. What is something that you can do for yourself to be 1% better today? What is a way that you can show up for yourself that's 1% better that you said that you would do? And really make a plan. Sit down and say, when my coffee is brewing, I'm going to do this. When I'm driving to work, I'm going to do this. And so you take the habits that you already have, the routines that you're already doing, and you add to them. So you're going to say, in the morning when I wake up, I'm going to do XYZ. And you can start to do these things to show up for yourself. And then each day that you do it, you say, I showed up for myself. And this is going to come to our evening activity that I mentioned earlier. Each evening, I want you to sit down and for about 3 minutes, I want you to write out things that you appreciated about yourself from that day. And if you're following these plans, then a couple of them should be, I did my daily joys. If you don't know what a daily joy is, please definitely go and visit some of my other content. But a real quick overview is you write out a list of things that you enjoy that actually bring you joy, and you make a conscious effort to do those during the day. So it could be like a bubble bath, taking a walk, smelling the roses. And then while you're doing that activity, you spend a few seconds, it can be like 30 seconds, to really pay attention to that moment and how you feel in that moment. And realize that you're doing this so that you can show up for yourself. And so that's a daily joy. So if you're doing your daily joy, which I recommend you do at least one a day, but multiple is better. So if you're doing that, that can go on your list of things that you appreciated about yourself. Another one could be, I showed up for myself. I'm doing what I said I was going to do. I'm doing the activities that are listed. I'm starting to shift the way that I'm talking about myself, and I'm paying attention to really these little small wins that are in my life and that I just haven't really been paying attention to. I haven't been conscious of. And the more that you pay attention to these small wins, the more you have to appreciate about yourself. So if you're looking to build creativity and at the end of the day, you paid attention to all these different ways that you were creative, well, then something you appreciate about yourself is all these things that you did that were creative and that made you feel like you're a creative person and started to solidify into your own identity that, yes, I am creative. Yes, I am doing this. Yes, I am showing up for myself. So to quickly recap, you're going to start today by paying attention to the ways that you're talking about yourself. What are the things that you're actually paying attention to? What are the, instead of like small wins that you're paying attention to, what are the other things you're paying attention to? Like, are you giving more credit to the areas that you're not creative or that you don't feel love? Or are you giving more attention and focus to the areas that you do feel creative or you do feel love, or whichever other feeling and identity that you're looking to embody? Then the second part is learning how to show up for yourself. What are ways that you can start to pay attention to the way that you want to feel? What are things that you can incorporate into your day so that you feel like you're more this person that you're looking to become, or more this person who has this feeling and this type of life that you're looking for? Whether that's love, whether that's wealth, whether it's creativity, overall well-being, whatever it is. And what areas is that already in your life that maybe you're just not paying enough attention to because you're paying attention to too many other things? And how can you shift your focus? How can you use your own habit loop to make it a routine and a focus to pay attention to these things? And you're going to do that by choosing some small items that you can become 1% better in doing. So when you're looking at your day and you say, okay, I have a habit of driving to work and being concerned about all the things that I'm going to do at work, what is a way instead that you can use that time to redirect your thoughts? When I'm driving to work, I'm going to listen to a podcast that I find motivational. When I'm driving to work, I'm going to tell myself the things like my intention for the day, the things that I care about myself. I'm going to review a list of things that I really appreciate about myself. When I'm driving to work, I'm going to open the sunroof and feel the sun hitting my face, and I'm going to listen to some really good feel-good music. Whatever it is for you, but start to tap into the ways that you can feel good, that you can generate feelings that are more aligned and more focused on the person that you want to be. And then each evening, I want you to spend time focused on the things that you appreciated about yourself that day. Just spend 3 minutes, you can set a timer and write out things that you appreciated about yourself. And the more that you lean into this, it should always be that you showed up for yourself, that you're doing something for you, that you're giving yourself ways to feel loved, and you're changing your own self-concept. So I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that these activities are definitely helpful. They have been immensely helpful in my life. If there's anything that you have questions on, please shoot me an email or leave a comment down below if you're listening on YouTube. My email again is unleashinghappiness@ceciliahendricks.com, and I will be back on Monday for the podcast. Thank you so much again for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode, definitely please share it out with your network. That is truly one of the best compliments that you can give me. And if you have a moment, if you could please rate and review the episode, that definitely helps me get out to more people.